goals, dreams and goals, dreams and goals.
How's it going? Dustin Gutkowski with the DG show and the early and on time. Melitsa is here. Welcome. And seriously, thank you for coming because I was actually upset for a second. Like, not upset at you. I was upset because our streak was broken. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, where did
I risked my life to be here, by the way. You know?
That's even more better.
We got caught in the storm, and you couldn't see anything in front of us.
Was it really that bad?
It was bad.
Well,
for like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. It's a little dramatic, but that's okay.
I still risked my life to get here.
No, I appreciate that. And we really we were on an undefeated streak, and I was like, man, it's broken. And I told you I said it today, and then I jinxed it, and so.
Next time you can send a helicopter for me.
That would be way easier, right? I was like, do we need to go paddleboard? Have you ever paddleboarded, by the way?
No, I'm actually going to the first time on the 29th. It's going to be around here, actually.
I just did for the first time yesterday.
How was it?
It was fantastic, except for he lost his phone. So he was getting out of the water, goes in, and we were down there trying to get it.
Did he find it?
No.
Oh, man.
No.
But did you buy him a new one?
He bought him a new one because I had nothing to do with that. If I would have did it, I definitely would have bought him a new phone. But it was actually amazing. It was my first time did it, but it was just.
How was your balancing?
It was suspect. I didn't fall in.
Okay,
but
good.
It
was
suspect.
it like?
Oh yeah, I was out.
Good core workout.
It was, and I'll tell you, my legs were so sore because I didn't even realize it. But the next day I worked out, and I actually got scared for a second because I was like, why are my legs? I felt like they were going numb.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I having a heart attack? And no, it was just a balance of holding yourself up there. But it was cool. It was just like peaceful. Like you could just go. It was super peaceful. So it was fun. We're actually going to do it again later.
Oh, nice.
So tell us a little bit about you. So interesting story. You grew up in a tough childhood, right? Where were you originally from and how was that? If you can talk a little bit about that.
I was born in Puerto Rico.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yes. Born and raised. Well, I moved. My parents moved me from Puerto Rico at 2 weeks.
Really?
To Massachusetts, Worcester, Massachusetts. I call
Big
it
change.
the armpit of America.
How long did you live there?
I went
Too
into
long?
I went into the foster care system at like 3.
Oh, wow.
And then my family, there was a family that found out about me in church, about me and my brother and my little sister. So they could only take 2. So they took my brother and myself. And then my little sister was 9 months old and she went somewhere else with another family. And my brother was 5, I was 3. So we went into a Christian home. My parents were heroin addicts. Yeah. And you know what's crazy? Like I remember all of that. People were like, "Oh, you were only 3." I'm like, "Yeah, you remember." You know, just being taken out, like the apartment being raided by like cops and stuff like that, and you know, taking the kids out. Like you remember all that stuff.
You do,
especially if it's traumatic.
Isn't it weird? Like it's like a glimpse. It almost feels like a dream or something. It's like you don't remember like everything, but you remember that happening to you, like almost like a flashback.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
Do you?
I'm happy I remember that stuff.
Yeah, it keeps you grounded. It keeps me like super grounded. For a long time, I struggled with it. Like I would wake up like in the middle of the night because a lot of stuff like my stepdad would like beat my mom or like beat us, and it'd be like late at night. So I'd wake up in the middle of the night like having it almost like it was a dream. It was terrible for so long. How long were you? Did you stay with that family for?
Well, I went into different foster homes until that family grabbed us or got us, and I was with them until I was 15. And you know, of course, as a foster child, you know, you're gonna go through your trials and tribulations of not feeling loved, not feeling enough, and I did have a kind of a tough upbringing with them, but I'm grateful for them. They're amazing people, and what I do admire and appreciate about them is that they really taught me Christianity. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And I live by my values and morals that I grew up in, and you know, I was baptized when I was younger, and I was able to attend church every single week. So, you know, I'm still a godly driven person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's because they really instilled me in.
Do you still talk to them?
Yeah, I do.
That's awesome.
They're amazing. They're in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Out of all places, yes.
So where did you? Okay, so you went from Puerto Rico to
Worcester to New Hampshire with them, and then I moved back to Puerto Rico when I was 9.
Okay.
And I was there from 9 to 15 years old, and then 15 years old I moved. I hated my family at the time, my foster parents. I was in that age of just like not getting along with them, and things were going really, really bad. And I told them that I wanted to leave. And, you know, it got to the point at 12, like I tried to commit suicide twice. Like,
Wow.
That's how tough it got for me mentally and with them. So then I was like, okay, I'm ready to leave. I wasn't happy. I was miserable. I was literally telling people, anybody that I would see, like, adopt me, adopt me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went back with my biological mom, and, you know, I just basically, things that weren't going well with her either, and I kind of just branched out on my own and started sleeping with, you know, on friends' couches, and, you know, it was just kind of one of those, and then I got a job, you know, 16 years old, and started making my own little money. I've worked everywhere: Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King, Market Basket, like all these places.
That's crazy.
Bass Pro Shops, you know, Bass Pro Shops, yeah, all these other places, and yeah, I just knew I never had that victim mentality. I just always knew like I was destined for something great, you know, and I was gonna accomplish it no matter what.
How old are you now?
Take a guess.
Don't do that.
Yes, I'm gonna do that.
We're not doing that.
Okay, 2 guesses.
You just said no guesses. Now I get 2. Yeah. I don't even want 1. I don't need 2.
Guesses.
I don't need 1 actually.
3, 2, 1, go.
29.
1 more.
Look.
One more.
30.
42.
Okay, 42. I'm never gonna never, like, that's a death wish. Okay, you just don't do that. So what, like, when this is like a lot to unpack, but I'm glad we're talking about this because I had just shitty childhood, but I had the opposite. I actually had a victim mentality for a long time. Where do you think that you were able to, like, not have that? Like, was there somebody that was instilling that in you? Did you pick that up somewhere? Like, where did that come from? Was it just something you had?
I want to say I was born with it. I've always been resilient, and anything I ever wanted, I would get it. Even when I was in kindergarten, okay, in daycare, I used to be the trouble kid.
Yeah.
Like, the girls would fall asleep and I didn't have dolls, so I would go and steal their dolls while they were sleeping.
Solid, yeah.
Right? And then they would I wouldn't nap for some reason. When they would wake up from their nap, they started crying. And then, what's the matter? My doll is missing. And the teacher just would look at me.
Yeah.
Melitsa, where's the doll?
You're like, I don't have
you know, and I was like the only kid that would go home with either the smiley face, the one that was like this, or the sad face.
Yeah, I was terrible.
Oh my
kid.
goodness. And then it would happen all the time, but I would always just get what I wanted. And then, yeah, I was saying the story the other day. I was being interviewed by Jen, and she was like, tell me a story. And I was like, you know what? I started playing basketball when I was in 3rd grade, and I loved Michael Jordan, and there was a boys basketball team in my school. And I was the only girl playing with them, and I was better than most of them, right?
That's awesome.
And my my coach was putting me on pretty much almost the entire game. I was a point guard. And the boys started complaining. They started complaining to the coach. He didn't take me out. And then they started complaining to the moms. So the moms went and complained to the principal. So one day the coach gets us all together and he goes, you know, I have really sad news. But, you know, Melitsa can no longer play with us. And he was like, and to be honest with you, she plays better than most of you guys, the boys here.
That's crazy.
And then I remember I was so devastated because I loved playing basketball. And so when I got into 4th grade, I went to Mr. Colon. I'll never forget Mr. Colon. I loved him so much. I was like, Mr. Colon, can we start a girls group, a basketball group? And he was like, because I was like, I really want to play. And he goes, yes, let's start it. So I started the girls basketball group in elementary school, so 4th, 5th, and 6th.
That's
so
all, yeah,
once
that's
they
great.
started, because we had bilingual, and then we had only Spanish-speaking students, right? So the bilingual I was in it because I had moved from the States there, and then you had the only Spanish. So we had 2 4th grade classes, the bilingual and then the Spanish.
In Puerto Rico?
So 2 5th grade classes, bilingual and Spanish. So we would play against each other. So then junior high saw us with basketball teams, and they're like, oh, well, we want to do it too. So basically I started the whole girls basketball team at my school.
That's great. That's great. They should hang a jersey up of you.
I know, right?
In the school. That's great. Do you still play basketball now?
Actually, I was playing with my friend Kian the other day. He took me to play basketball. And I'll tell you something really cool. I got the chance to meet Michael Jordan and tell him
Really?
that story. And I also made him $1.4 million at the blackjack table.
Did he give you a cut?
I actually asked him not to.
Why?
Well, it's an interesting story. This was like 9 years ago. One of my girlfriends, she's like, Mel, she was dating one of his friends, and she goes, Mel, we're gonna go to dinner with Michael Jordan. Do you want to come? She didn't know I played basketball. She didn't know I was a fan, and I was like, sure. Yeah. And
Who?
I was like,
I don't even know that guy. Yeah.
I was like, oh my freaking gosh.
Yeah.
Right? So it was at Ari at the steakhouse upstairs there's a private room, and they have like this big ass long table. And I'm a little late, I'm not gonna lie. I'm walking in.
I thought you were never late. Now there's a pattern. Here we go. Now we're trending.
This was 10
Now,
years ago.
Yeah. Here we go. Now we're seeing.
So then as I'm walking in, I see Charles Barkley, I see Pippen, Jordan, of course, in the middle, and like a whole bunch of other, Howard Hewlett was there. And then they're all on the end of the table, and then my girlfriend and a couple other, people were on this side. It was probably like a table of like, I would say 20, 25 people. And I was like, well, I'm not sitting close to him, but at least I could say I had dinner at his table,
Yeah.
right? So then as dinner is moving on, whatever, everybody's talking, everybody starts getting up. And I'm just talking with my girlfriend, the people over here, but the two chairs next to me were empty. And I didn't even see him. I felt this massive presence just walking by. I was like, oh, that's him, and he's gonna sit next to me. That was literally what I was thinking about. And I was like, well, what can I say that I can stand out and not sound like a groupie or anything, right? So he sits next to me.
I love you, Michael Jordan.
I know, right? And I look at him, I was like, I bet you I could beat you at blackjack. That's exactly what I said.
And he's a huge competitor.
And he goes,
he loves gambling.
He goes, what did he say to me? And I was like, I bet you I could beat you at blackjack. And he goes, okay. So then he starts giving me like the plays, right? And he's like, well, what do I do here? I was like, double down, hit, stay, da-da-da. And he goes, okay, well, I'm down $1 million, which obviously we know $1 million to him ain't shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're telling me I can make my money back? He's like, you're gonna make my money back? And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can make his money back or not, All I know is I have won a couple blackjack tournaments.
Yeah, I got this.
You're
You're a blackjack hustler.
Blackjack, exactly. So then he goes, all right, we're going to go downstairs right now and play. And I was like, cool, under one condition. And he goes, what? And I was like, I don't want your money for me to play because I want to play too. I'm going to go to the ATM. I'm going to take out my own money. You have your money. I'm going to play with mine. Because I didn't want him to think that I was just another, you know what I mean?
Everybody wants something.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, all right, deal. We literally, just me and him, get up, go downstairs, and I'm walking to an ATM with Michael Jordan.
That's awesome.
I had
That's great.
my ATM card where I could only take out like $500.
Yeah, you're like, I got this. He's playing 1,000 a hand, 5,000 a hand. You're like, oh.
10,000, like 10,000, 20,000 a hand.
It's crazy.
And then, so we go out back to the reserve area, and he has a table waiting there for him, and he goes, all right, where do you want me to sit? I was like, the last seat. I've always won my tournaments on the first seat, so you take the last seat, I take the first seat, and I was like, nobody comes in. He's like, deal. So in the process of us playing, Barkley came by, Howard Hewlett came by. I was like, this is so freaking cool, And then, I don't know, 2-3 hours later, $1.4 million he walked away with. And I walked away, I think, with maybe a couple thousand or something like that. I had started with 500.
I would have been like, hey, bro. I changed my mind. Isn't it weird though? Like I've gambled with some big time players, like money players, right? And at the time I didn't have money, but I was like, holy shit! Like these dudes are playing more than what I make in a year. Mm-hmm. Like it's nothing, right? And then lose it. What do you think about? You brought up the other name, which I just Pippen, but what do you think about this whole crap of Pippen just throwing Jordan under the bus? You see,
I didn't even hear about that.
Didn't hear? Did he do a whole tour? Like Pippen did the entire tour where he traveled around bashing Jordan. Yeah, so let's see. Hold on. He did this entire tour. Look it up because I know now I'm gonna think I'm crazy as nobody knows. Pippen's tour.
Maybe you dreamt about it.
No. It's not about Jordan. He he takes it on the road. It's the No Bull Tour. It's refreshing to know that instead of beating the dead horse, Pippen, Grant, and Longley develop a No Bull Tour to visit their respective basketball leagues with Jordan. And they go after. They said it's like an anti-Jordan.
Did you hear him say it, or did they just write about it?
I saw people. Pippen has regularly ripped Michael Jordan ever since the documentary came out.
I would have to see him saying it. There's so much BS out there. You know what I mean? And I don't know. If it's on video and I see him saying it, I'll believe it. If it's just written, like, I don't believe anything anymore.
Yeah, it's wild. But I was like, the reason I didn't know, I just saw it the other day. I saw it the other day, and I was like, wow, are they just like? It said Stephen A. Smith says Scottie Pippen is going to embarrass himself. Everybody knows he's not Michael Jordan. Never was. Yeah,
I mean, if it is true, for me, haters are always gonna hate.
Always.
You know what I mean? If it's not true, I would. Haters. What I saw, I think like they're best friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know.
It's what okay. So take Jordan out of the equation because he's the GOAT, right? LeBron or Kobe?
Kobe.
Thank you. I was worried. I was like, don't look at it.
I personally don't like LeBron.
Why not?
I just don't. I had a situation with him that it was just.
You don't like him, the player, or the?
I don't like anything about him. I don't like his personality. I think he's a crybaby. I remember back in the day, like I was 23 years old. I was a VIP waitress, and the owners would always give me like the best tables because I was a great waitress. And he was one of my clients, and he had just gotten signed, and we literally put like a whole bunch of like Moet bottles, rosé, everything. And one of the rules was you have to take payment before you open anything, even before we bring out the bottles, but they wanted it all set up. Okay?
Yeah, it's supposed to be an NBA superstar.
Yeah, so when I go there, I go to him with a check, and I was like, hey, here's the check. Can I get, what credit card would you like to put it on? He's like, I'm not paying for this. And I was like, well, this isn't free, and it's not comped. And he goes, well, I'm not paying for it. And they had already opened the stuff. And I was like, well, if you don't pay for this, they're going to hold me liable for this. I'm going to have to pay for it. And he goes, I don't care. And he walked out. And I almost like got into big trouble. But this was at Mansion back in the days.
Is this here?
Yeah, in South Beach.
In South Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. If you did that, did you have, like when you were doing that at the VIP spot, did you have any like good athletes or actors? And if you did, like which one was your favorite that would come in that treated people well? Or any good stories?
Oh my God, so many. I had Leonardo DiCaprio, Enrique Iglesias, Scott Storch was cool.
Really?
Yeah, Rick Ross.
Yeah, Rick Ross, Miami legend.
The Cuban guy, like.
Pitbull?
Yeah, he's amazing. I love him.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, so many. Like I had the opportunity to host a lot of them.
Really? Who was your favorite? Like favorite story about anything that happened that night? Like just, it's always good. I like to see the feel good stories. Like you hear these, like, because you hear the horror stories, right? Like where famous people go in and like they just want people comped, or they don't want to pay for it, or they don't tip. But then on the flip side, you hear the ones where like they just took care of them. They,
For me, my favorite, and he would freak it when, and this was like back in the day in Vegas, Dana White, which is a great friend of mine. I was actually in his office a couple weeks ago. He would literally leave like $10,000-$15,000 tips.
Yeah, takes care of people. That's why people love him.
He's amazing. Yeah, great guy.
He's great. So talk about what you're doing now. So I know you're doing backpack for kids.
Well, actually, I started that. I started Backpack Attack probably like 5 years ago. Yeah. And I wanted to do it for the homeless. So I started first with the homeless. And I was really trying to help them. And I would go out there, I would go to the dollar store, I would go to Walmart and just pack up a whole bunch of bags. But I had a couple of scary situations. And then there was a couple of homeless where I would be like, hey, what do you need? Well, I need my license. Okay, well, like, give me your name, give me your social, I'm gonna help you. And some of them were like, once they saw how serious I was about it, they're like, no, I don't need your help. Like, I don't want responsibilities. And I'm like, okay. Then a couple scary situations because I would do it by myself. And then what I noticed is majority of them didn't want the help. So I started thinking about my dad, right? My dad was a heroin addict and he died last year from a heroin overdose. So
Sad.
my mother overcame it. She's a minister now. She
Yeah.
has her own
Wow,
little
really?
church. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's Pastora Nieves. That's her name. She basically, overcame that. But my father died of a heroin overdose last year. So I would think about my dad. I'm like, he's been given so many opportunities to really change his life.
And
like
they don't
my
want to.
aunts, like my titi Miriam, she would bring him in all the time, and he just couldn't get out of it. So I started thinking, I'm trying to help these homeless people. They don't want it. So I started thinking about my father. I'm like, I can't change them.
Yeah.
So let me put these efforts into foster kids and
Love
kids
that.
with Down syndrome, the underprivileged kids and underprivileged areas. So then a lot of people on social media started seeing me, creating this, and they're like, oh, here's $20, here's $30, here's $100. Had somebody one time send me $500, and I just started gifting these bags to these kids, and I kind of feel selfish because I would do it more for myself because the way they would make me feel when I was doing that. They would act like I was giving them $1 million, and it was a backpack with maybe
But they love it
$25,
because that might be all they get all year or they've ever gotten.
Oh my goodness. Actually, I would love to do it again. I haven't done one in a couple of years, but I want to get back to it.
Yeah.
Giving back in that way. It just came from a place of really wanting to be of service. And then that led into, me wanting to, at the time I was in medical sales. I was in medical sales for 10 years. After I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. After I,
Wow.
did my waitressing stuff, I started my entrepreneurship journey when I was 24. Then I got into, I got into real estate investing. Then I got into medical sales. I did that for almost 10 years. I was working with some of the top orthopedic surgeons here in the country. And then I just knew that that's not what I wanted to do forever. And I hit rock bottom 10 years ago when I was married for almost 10 years. And my ex-husband decided to cheat on himself. So I was just like, okay, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't deserve that. So I went through 2 years of really partying like a rock star. You know what I mean?
Here in Miami?
No, Vegas and Miami.
Oh, it's horrible either decision. It's like horrible either way. Yeah.
But it was my way of coping with my pain. I was a wife for almost 10 years, like a homebody and just like, building my businesses. And I was also the breadwinner in my relationship. So, I was very focused and I wanted to accomplish something great with my ex-husband. And then that happened. So I kind of lost my identity because I was with him my entire 20s, So when I left him, I think, what was I, like 31 or 32? So I didn't know. I remember I would wake up in the morning and I would just look at the ceiling for like 4 hours. I couldn't get out of bed and just like, who am I without him? Who am I without him,
Did you have kids? No kids?
No kids.
Okay, good.
So 2 dogs.
Yeah,
I have one left still from that. But so for me, I was partying like a rock star, hanging out with the wrong people. And then one morning I woke up and I went to the mirror. I've said this story before. I went to the mirror and I looked at myself and I said this out loud. I'm like, Melitsa, are you proud of the woman you've become? And you can't lie to yourself. And that's why when I have friends that call me for advice, I tell them, I'm like, go to the mirror right now. Okay. And I want you to ask me what you just asked me, but looking at yourself. Don't close your eyes. Because your eyes is the window to your soul. Yeah. Your soul can't lie to you. Yeah. And if you really think about it, if you do that, you're going to give yourself the right answer. Because we do know the right answer.
And you regret the regret and the shame.
Exactly. So when I asked myself that question, I said, no, I'm not proud of who I've become. So what are you going to do about it? Right? And I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna change my life. And it was within those days that I saw an ad on Facebook that said, reignite your life, your finances, and your future, free ticket. So I was like, free ticket, this must be a cult or something, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about like almost 10 years ago, right? So personal development was still new. Not new, for me it was, but then...
It was, no, I know what you're saying. It
wasn't as popular
there was
as
no
it is now.
coaches or whatever.
Only Tony Robbins that I know of, right?
Yeah, I was
and
just
Bob
saying.
Proctor.
Yeah, there was, but and there wasn't really, there wasn't, you didn't have that.
Yeah. So then I reached out to a girlfriend of mine. Have you heard of Alexi Panos and Preston Smiles? They're motivational speakers, amazing couple, power couple. Do you know Lewis Howes?
Yes.
Okay. So Lewis Howes is good friends with them, and they were all kind of like starting in that journey.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure I've seen them. Like if I saw them.
They're an amazing couple. Anyway, so I called her. I knew her from New York City. I met her when I was like 19. We were both 19. And I go, Alexi, have you ever heard of this company called Peak Potential by T. Harv Eker? You know T. Harv Eker from The Millionaire Mind?
Yeah.
She goes, no, but if she said, if there's one positive thing you get out of it, it's a win situation.
Absolutely, especially for free.
Exactly, for free, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up booking my flight, booked my hotel room. Those 3 days changed my life because I was seeing other people that were in the same mindset that I was in. I was like, okay, I'm here for growth. They're here for growth. I'm here not to party. They're not to party. You know, I'm
That's
there,
hard
like,
too, especially
having
when
like amazing conversations with incredible people. I met one of my best friends, Tiffany Jones. She's the founder of I Rule My Life, and just elevating myself with other people. So I was like, this is where I belong. Did I end up investing almost $10,000 at the end of the retreat?
Yeah.
Yes, but it was worth it. I ended up spending 2 years of my life in personal growth, evolution, personal development, emotional intelligence. You know, every 2 to 3 months, I would go to different courses that they were offering to help me elevate my life. And I'll never forget this time. I was in medical sales at the time, and I was standing in my office, and I was like, I am meant to share my story. I don't even know how I'm going to do it, but I know I'm going to be an author. I know I'm going to be a speaker. And I remember just saying my story out loud, like if I was preaching to an audience in my office. And I remember feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit. I don't know if you've ever felt the presence of the Holy Spirit, but I have multiple times in my life. And I don't know your religious beliefs or not, but I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. And I remember feeling that. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I was going to make it happen. And long story short, I moved back to Miami, and I was walking over the bridge in Brickell, and I was like, I'm not finding people that think like me here in Miami. This was like back in the day, right? And I'm not seeing people that are wanting to grow with me. I'm just seeing the same BS over and over again. And I was going to networking events, and I was leaving unfulfilled. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to move to LA where Lewis House is, Alexi, all these other motivational speakers. And I remember feeling this in my heart, and I was like, Melitsa, if it doesn't exist, create it. So from the moment I had my idea of having my first event to having it, from the idea to having it was only 3 days.
That's awesome. So you did your first, how long ago was that?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Yeah.
Did your first event?
Yeah. So then I had never spoken on stage, but I knew that what I was going to talk about was the things that I was learning with the T. Harv Eker.
How nervous were you the first time you spoke on stage?
I was like this.
Yeah, shaking. Didn't want to go.
I still have a picture. I actually posted it recently too, like what Epic Talks was the first time to the Epic Talks now. And then I remember just reaching out to a girlfriend of mine. She's a law professor at the University of Miami, Alicia Bolchenko. And I was like, hey, girl, I'm thinking about doing an event. I've never done one before. I've never spoken on stage, but I know you're used to speaking in front of students. Yeah. So how about you speak with me? She goes, okay. She thought I was BSing. So I went on Canva. I barely knew even how to use Canva. Yeah. And I'm over here creating this little poster on it.
Thing. Yeah.
And then at the time,
take their little template and try to fix it. Yeah.
At the time, I called it Epic Life Masters. So I put a picture of her. I put a picture of me. I went to FedEx Kinko. I printed out 100 flyers. I passed them all over Brickell and downtown and where at the buildings that I lived at. And I rented a ballroom. I went to Whole Foods, got a couple bottles of wine, cheese and crackers, and I waited. 15 people showed up to my first event.
That's good though.
15 people.
Yeah.
8
Was
of
it free?
them were my friends.
None of them were your friends?
8 of them were my friends.
8 of them were your friends. Hey, at least you had 8 people supporting you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So then, yes, it was free at the time. And then I remember sharing my story, and I was so nervous, but they were listening, and they were networking, and then afterwards they stuck around, and I was giving them exercises, and some of them had breakthroughs, and I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. So then, when I had my second event, I was like, okay, like Napoleon Hill talks about this in the Laws of Success, right? One of the chapters is imagination, right? So for me, I was like, how can I be creative, right? And use my imagination to my next event have 100 people. Mm-hmm. So one of the guys that I was working with, Luis Escobar, and then Andres Ospina that I knew from the T. Harv Eker event, I had mentioned to him I wanted to do an event. One of them was friends and business partners with Jason Stowe, a millionaire mentor. So
I've heard that name.
Yeah. So
Is he like a jiu-jitsu guy or something?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what.
So then he has an awesome story too. So then I reached out to them and I was like, hey, let's start promoting the heck out of this and let's have an event. We had 120 people at
That's
the next
awesome.
event. And then,
How nervous were you then?
I was super nervous.
More nervous?
Yeah, I was super nervous, but I was like, I got this. You know what I mean? I was born for this. That's what
How
I
many?
say.
I want to ask you this because I hate speaking in front of people, but I do it all the time, right? and it's actually was one of my biggest fears in life. Like I remember in high school, which was terrible. My teacher, I had like a 30. I was failing miserably, and she goes, "If you just get up and give this speech in front of the class, I'll pass you." And I said, "No." I wouldn't do it. Like I hated talking in front of groups of people. And now we talking, I don't know, we've done a couple thousand, just like different things. And even we have 150 employees. So it's like you speak in front of people all the time. But I wasn't, how do you, even though you're nervous, like what are things that for anyone that wants to be a part of your class or like speaking for, what do you do to prepare or get over when you get on the stage? When you get on the stage, it's literally like the Eminem song. Like, everything, you forget everything, the words won't come out. How do you get over that and deliver it?
Prepare. I think people get nervous because they're not prepared, Of course, in the beginning, I was nervous because it was my first time, but it's like anything else. Like, you got to train yourself and just continue putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Yeah. And even though I was nervous and there was times that my hand was shaking like this, and I would tell the audience.
You tell them the truth.
I mean, hey, I'll be honest with you. I'm a new speaker. I'm nervous, but I'm happy. Like, people are they'd rather die than speak in public.
It's truth.
You know what I mean? And it's so liberating too once you grasp it. And it's even more liberating when you actually do something that scares you. Yeah. And you conquer it.
And you get through it.
Get through it. Now I'm not nervous. Put me in front of 10,000 people. I got this.
Yeah, it's easy. It's funny. I look at everyone, but I look at no one. I always felt that at first when I started doing it, I would focus on people, and then you would almost distract yourself with what they're thinking. And that's what I realized. I was like, most people in the audience they're more nervous about you're going to call on them to speak or something, like, because people would rather die than speak in front of people. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it's weird. Like, I'll still get nervous randomly. Like the other day, I forget where we were talking to, and it just wasn't even a big deal, but I got so nervous. I was like, why am I nervous right now? And then, like I said, we've done it we did it in front of a couple thousand students. It's a bunch of high school kids that are like underprivileged. And I was just cool as a cucumber, like no nerves, no nothing. And then speaking in front of 10 people, I'm like, but why? And it's just that weird feeling. And I guess you learn to get through it. And one of the funnest things is the more nervous you are and then you get through it, it's almost like it's a better reward on the other side because you fought through those struggles.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because I last year I spoke at like 3 high schools. And believe it or not, I don't get nervous in front of adults. The first time, and I'm like, oh my God, all these kids like.
Because they were, because they were judging me, and I know this one kid was talking shit. Because remember, and I was like, dude, hey, I don't care if you're in high school, homie, you can get it. Like he did. I remember when we were at we did this event, and I know one of them was, and I was like, I got you, bro. Like I see you. So I was.
But you know what? I learned a little secret. Have a gift for them, and they'll
love you.
Yeah, be like, hey, I have a gift for you guys, so make sure you pay attention. Yeah. Somebody's gonna win. Who wants to win in this audience? Hey.
Me. Yeah. Well, the first time I went, it was funny. The first time I went, I dressed like. They're like dressed proper. That's not me. Like I wear Jordans, like it's just not who I am. So I tried to dress like a little chachi, like a Steve, No offense to any Steves out there, but I was like, I tried to dress like tucked in shirt. I'm like, man, this isn't me. And the kid was talking shit. I'm like, this is me. So the next time I wore how I would dress, like my chain, my J's, and they're like, hey, what's up? Nice shoes. And it was more supportive. I was like, yeah, because I wasn't fitting in because, they were like dressed professional. And I'm like, but that's just not. It's just not who I am. Like I'm not I was sad. I just recently bought my first suit, so it's not that. This is how I dress, right? But I noticed like when I was authentic, back to what you said, when you're more authentic, people are like, okay, cool. They
can relate to you.
They can tell, right? Like they can tell, like, okay, this is where I came from. But you can make it. I think there's that pre-notion of like, where I come from, it's the trailer park. I was homeless. Like you're not supposed to make it to where I made it, but this is who I am. And it has nothing to do with the way you dress. Like people are like, well, you got to dress like you're in the room. I'm like, man, I've been around dudes in 3-piece suits that are broke. They have nothing. You know what I mean? They're the $30,000 millionaires. And I've been around people that are wearing shorts and a T-shirt and they're billionaires. And they're making it because they're not trying to impress anyone. So it's like, no, You don't have to dress that way to get in that room. Yeah, if you're going to a country club, of course. Like, but it's like the most important thing you can do above all those things is be who you are, be authentic, and be yourself, right? If you do those things, people will relate to you regardless. And so I know we got to wrap up here in a minute. We've already been going 45 minutes. Wow.
Wow, that went by so
Fast. But I do, obviously you're doing the talks now. And just for people too, because obviously it's a powerful story, right? How many kids that go through just foster care come out on the other side, right? Like that's a big deal. Like you should be proud of yourself. But I think the thing that I've learned the most is your pain and your trauma never goes away. Like you don't, people say get over it, but you don't get over it. It's always a part of you. It's a part of who you are. And for a long time I ran from it and I felt like I was running from these demons. And the more that I ran from them, the bigger they got. And it almost made me more scared to face them. And finally, one day I was like, fuck it, man. Like, okay, here I am. Like, what do you have? Okay, you were in a trailer park. Great. You don't know your dad. Your mom's a crackhead. Like, you went through all these things. Okay, now what? And I just started facing them. And I realized they're always going to be there. And they're always going to be a part of me. They're who I am, good or bad. And I'm not going to get over them. But what can I do to deal with them? Right? And sometimes there's things that hit me different than others, and I don't understand. Sometimes I don't think it's necessarily a trigger. It's just different times, and I guess your emotions. But I've learned that it's embrace who I am. It's a part of the journey. It's a feeling. It's not a destination. And weather this storm, like you just talked about on the way here. You're like, Rich, it's like 5 minutes, but that's a serious thing. Sometimes the storm in your life is 5 minutes. Sometimes it could be the day. Sometimes it could be multiple days, but the storm's eventually going to stop. So I don't need to make most decisions. How do you deal with, you've turned your negative into a positive. Thanks, Biggie. But how do you deal with that trauma popping up? And when it does, are there things that you do to deal with it?
Oh, that's really interesting you say that, because I think maybe a little differently than you. I'm so grateful for it, you know, and they don't really pop up for me. I'm so proud of the woman that I've become, and I'm so in love with who I am.
That's awesome.
That I embrace it. I'm like, I'm grateful for my trials and tribulations. I'm grateful that my parents were heroin addicts. I'm grateful that I was homeless and lived out of a car outside of a Walmart parking lot, you know?
Why not Target? No, I'm just kidding. I said, why not Target?
You know, so I think of it differently. Does it come up? Do I still get triggered by my mom, my biological mom? Sometimes when I talk to her, but I'm like, I ask myself, why is this coming up? And then when that comes up, I believe that it's the divine giving me an opportunity to have compassion for her and be proud of the woman that she's become. Because for her to have the strength to overcome being a heroin addict,
that's powerful.
And to
that's
now
crazy.
Be the woman that she is, where she's transforming people's lives, that I'm proud of her.
Yeah.
You know. And then for my brother, it's only her and my brother that sometimes trigger me. Same thing. I'm like, okay, where do I get to practice compassion here? Because that way, when I do that for them, it trickles into every area of my life. So I don't really have things from my past. Even with my ex-husband, like what happened was a crazy story, and I'm so grateful to him. And for me, forgiveness is really forgiveness is what's healed me.
That's awesome.
You know, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I thought that's huge. You gotta forgive. I think that's what changed the game for me was forgiving my mom. I don't know my real dad, right? Like if you bet me whatever $1 billion, I don't even know his name. Like I don't have no idea. So I don't know anyone on my dad's side. My stepdad was a piece of shit growing up. My mom literally meth head, right? But it was the forgiving. That was the key. And I think it's harder to forgive people the more love you have for them, right? It's like, I think it's like, you know, me and my wife will get in a fight and it's like, you're like, I'm not saying sorry, you know? And it's like, it's over something so dumb, but you had to fight. And I think that's with your parents too. You hold those grudges. You hold grudges almost for people you love the most, which is so strange. But once I forgave my mom, it was like, look, that was the best mom she could be to her abilities, right? It was just what it was. But now I'm grateful because with my kids, it's like now I know the father I didn't want to be. I know what I look for in a mother. I'm so thankful for my wife. It makes me appreciate her more because I saw what I went through with my mother, and I'm like, wow, like you're such an amazing mom. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And so I just think the compassion and the forgiveness is probably the ultimate like healing and the way to get over your trauma if you're struggling for it, because then if you're forgiving someone, there's nothing being held over you. So you don't have those triggers as much. So I think that's super powerful.
And you know what else? You can't preach something you've never lived.
100%.
So that's why I'm like, all right, thank you, God. You know, and even now, even when I go through like something difficult in my business or with a friendship or something, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because if you're going through difficult moments and you're not learning from it, it's going to continue happening
keep going.
until you learn from it. So I'm like, okay, this is room for growth. So that's how I look at it. You know what I mean? And also not like Tim Story would say, not staying in the setback, you know?
Yeah.
Not staying in the setback, learning from it, and then moving forward so you can help someone else going through the same.
100%. Best way to learn something is to teach someone. I know we got to go. How can people find, is your events in Miami strictly, or?
Well, right now it's only in Miami. We are in talks with a big company to take it city to city.
Okay,
so
cool.
Some really great news about to pop.
So make sure if you want to do you do anything virtual for the Miami events?
Yes, virtual, Epic Talks.
Okay.
EpicTalksMiami.com. The next event is on Thursday. For the first time in 5 years, I'm actually having it on a Thursday. It's normally the last Wednesday of every single month, but this month we're having it on a Thursday. Every
That's
single
awesome.
month is a different topic. Epic Talks is the #1 entrepreneurship event in Miami. So every single month we have different topics like AI, real estate investing, taxes, PR, branding, marketing, and you come there to build a network.
That's
you know,
awesome.
you really do. It's even if it's not the topic that you're into,
Meet
it's
the right
2
people.
hours of full networking. You're only one connection away. I always say this to the people in my community. You're one connection away from a different life, from a partnership. I have somebody that just got engaged. They met there. I had another couple that just started dating. They met there. I had somebody raise $1.5 million because they pitched on the Epic Talk stage. You know, people, millions of dollars in transactions. You know, show up.
Yeah, just show up,
You know,
meet people. Yeah.
show up. So yeah, you can find me at Melitsa, Melitsa Waage on Instagram, Epic Talks Miami Instagram, and the tickets epictalksmiami.com.
And a tip, she said, when you go to the event, make sure you're the most interested person there, not the most interesting. It's not about your selfish app. If you want to get, you got to give.
Absolutely.
And do it.
100%.
Go check it out on Instagram and go check out the event here if you're in Miami. That way you can get your network on. And it's still cliche, but it's true. Your network is your net worth, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It was great. It was nice meeting you.
you.
I look forward to continued discussions.